This is a lot of boxes. Who'd have thought that you'd need so many things to rig out a camera, and you don't rig it out all the time. So let's have a look, get rid of these and have a look at exactly what I've done to rig out my R5c. Let's go. Okay, so first things first, you don't always need to rig out your camera, and there are specific use cases for when you would actually rig out a camera and when you would just use it bare or however it is that you're wanting to use it. Obviously you're not going to rig it out if you're taking photos because there's little to no point in doing that, but there are occasions when you would need to rig a camera out, especially if you're on a set or you're wanting to attach things to your camera that need places to attach it to. So you'll need things like screw mounts and things to be able to attach different things to the camera. In the R5c's case, some of the modes that it has are unlocked via V-mount batteries. So there is a need to be able to fit a V-mount battery to the R5c. So let's run through all the individual little bits. As you can see, we've got this camera set up. Let's run through all the individual bits and then I can show you exactly why I've picked what I've picked and what that particular piece actually does. Okay, so first things up, now that we've got the R5c all completely naked and as it should be, this is basically the camera as it comes. So first things up is a cage. You're going to need something to wrap around the camera, and I needed that in order to be able to attach other things to it. And anybody would think this video is sponsored by SmallRig, but it actually isn't, although SmallRig, if you're watching, feel free to sponsor away. So this is the SmallRig R5c cage. It's the number 2 version. It's not there's another one called like a Black Ninja or something like that. This is not it. This is like a full cage that goes all the way around. So it's like I did like a half one and a full one. This is the full one. And I bought this because the price was pretty good and also it fit exactly what I wanted to fit and how I wanted to fit it. And I like the fact that with SmallRig stuff, they do things like there's little magnetic points for tools and things at the bottom of them, and it allows you to keep stuff on your cage and on your camera, tools that you may need to use throughout the course of your shoot, and I really liked that, and that's one of the reasons why I went with this SmallRig cage. But then obviously because I've gone with a SmallRig cage, I thought it would be easier to just keep tricking it out with SmallRig stuff because I sort of know that stuff it works well, it's built really well, it's really high quality. There's like cold shoe mounts here, there and everywhere all over the thing, along with different sorts of mounting points from NATO rail style stuff to Arri rosette stuff and all that kind of good stuff. So that was the first piece of kit that I went and got because I thought that was going to be the thing that I would need, and I'd need to be able to trick it out effectively. The next thing I needed, and the next thing I thought I needed, was something to hold it at the top, but that wasn't the next thing that I actually bought. The next thing I bought was this little guy, and this little guy is a NATO rail mount. So essentially it's just like a grip mount for a handle or whatever you want it really, and that again, it can pretty much go anywhere you want. Because it's got a slide in the middle for 2 screws, so you can just fit screws in and you can stick it wherever you want it to be, and essentially that's what that effectively does. So we'll put that to one side for a second. So we've got the camera and then we've got the cage, which let's just sort that out so it fits in there. That's cool. Okay, there we go. And then we've got this little sort of connector which fitted to the top of the cage, goes across the top here. So we'll put that there like that, just leave that laid on top of there like that. The next thing I bought, which I thought we definitely needed to have, was this top handle. So I went with this guy, which it has a built-in connection point for a Allen key, and it spins 360, so you can undo this and then spin it around, so you can either hold it like this or you can hold it like this, one way or the other. And it basically, it lets you fit it how you want it to fit. And it's just a simple grip point at the bottom, which basically fits into this, and then just connects in straight away. And you just single tighten up, boom, and you're good to go. It's got a rosette mount on the front, on the top, on the back top, and then it's got mounting points all the way down both sides, and then this tool as well. It's also got two cold tube mounts, one at the back, one at the front, and it's also got mounting points at the back of the handle as well, and 3 points for like cable running and that kind of stuff as well. And it's got a nice comfy sort of wooden handle effect at the bottom of it, so that your hands are, you know, it's molded and gripped and all that kind of good stuff. And that basically just sits across the top of the cage, and then you've got something you can hang on to the camera with. And it's really, really, really heavy duty, really, really well made. I must admit, when I said at the beginning that you don't need to cage the camera out all the time, I wouldn't recommend you caging it out all the time. It becomes incredibly heavy when you've got a cage on it, because obviously you're carrying around quite a bit of stuff attached to the top of the camera at the same time. But this allows me to attach other stuff to the camera as well. So the next thing that I got, which was relevant to this, was this guy. And this is a monitor mount. This is a multi-monitor mount. This is an ARRI rosette monitor mount, so it's got two little pins at the back of that, and they lock into place, and they lock into place wherever you're putting your monitor, basically. So you can essentially sit them in place, get them on, and get them in the right place, and it locks it to where it needs to be. It's also got a little safety pin to stop the monitor moving, whittling back and forth once it's tightened up, and that just fits basically straight on there. So if we just show you how that fits in. So effectively that just screws into place there, and that comes out, and it's just tightened up, and boom, we've basically got ourselves a handle with a monitor mount attached to it. And this swivels, so when we loosen it up, this will swivel left and right, and it will also swivel up and down as well, so we can have it at angles if we want it to have it at an angle. And obviously we can change the way that rotates, so we can move that around so it's the other way, and we can move it that way. So it's like sort of got a good amount of adjustment to it, which allows us to then position the screen and the monitor where we need it to be. And again, it can be moved about, so you can shift it about, you can shift it and put it onto the side of the cage if you want to, and all that kind of stuff, all that good stuff. You can put it on the side of here if you wanted to, and that effectively allows you to position your monitor where you need it to be. But that was the next bit that I bought, and that sort of has been serving me really, really well in terms of having this caged out and what have you. So from that point there, I needed some way of connecting the battery to the camera, so we'll just put that there for a second so that we've got it to one side. So I needed something to connect the battery to this camera. So this camera's got a woeful battery, as I've said in the R5c review, the 6 months living with it. The battery's terrible in terms of, like, if you want to shoot for a good amount of time, you're going to struggle because your batteries, you're going to need a lot of batteries. So I went with the new SmallRig V-mount batteries off of a review from somebody on YouTube. I can't remember who it was who reviewed them on YouTube. It might have been Armando, but it was one of their reviews, and I thought, I was looking for V-mounts, and I was going to go with the FXion or FXion or whatever they call it. I was going to go with those, and I thought, do you know what, I'll just go with these because they're a bit smaller and they've got a little bit more connectivity to them. You know, you can use them as power banks and all that kind of good stuff. They've got USB-C and DTAP and all that kind of stuff on them. So I needed something to connect this to the cage, and but I also wanted something where I could be able to use the flip out screen, because I want to be able to use that. I could use that as a side monitor, so I could have a top monitor and a side monitor, and they'd be sort of like using it as a dual monitor system. But I wouldn't want it out all the time, because I mean, these are great, but they're just begging to be snapped off, aren't they, if they're out all the time? So I wanted something that would sort that out, and so I went with a two-step setup. So that's this guy. So first step is this guy, which is a universal bottom plate, and it's got a 50mm rod connection in it, basically. And that allows you to shove 50mm rods in, and then you can run rods through to the front, and you can use follow focus and lens support and all that kind of good stuff. This has also got attachments all over it, so you can screw things to the bottom. There's stuff all over the bottom of it, there's stuff all over the top of it, stuff all over the front and the back of it as well, which is really, really cool. But that's like sort of 1/3 of the putting this battery onto the the system itself. So the next step was this guy. Now this guy proved slightly more difficult to get hold of, in that I had to get it directly from SmallRig, because it's on another place. It's on another sort of mini site in SmallRig. It isn't even in their sort of online shop. It's on this other part of their online shop, which is like where filmmakers have requested things from SmallRig that are custom. So SmallRig have made them that custom piece of equipment so that they can then do their film. So this is like a battery hinge. So in essence, what it does is it flips back and forth, and then has a locking arm. And I must admit, I want to say, all these locking arms are pull-out jobs. So if you find that your locking arm ends up here, sticking out in the middle of nowhere, what you can do is you can just pull it up and twist it, and it'll just move it into a position where you want the actual lock to end, as it were. So I thought that was a good idea. But this sort of like made me think, that might be the way to go. So what that does is, let me just flip this out a little bit. So that connects to this, like so. And then he's tightened up, like so. And then you've got this kind of affair going off, as you can see. And what that does is that allows this to sit up like that. And then the third stage of that is this guy, which is a V-mount attachment plate. Now this thing has it's like a cheese grater. It's just like Swiss cheese, basically. It's got connection and mounting points absolutely everywhere, all over it. And what that does is that sits basically there, like that. And then when it's closed, you can lay it flat. When it's open, because it's not screwed in at the minute. When it's open, it sits basically like this. And then that allowed me to sit the camera, when I can get this right, here we go. So that allowed me to sit the camera on the back like so. And it meant that if I needed to, what I could do is I could just drop this down, and then I would be able to pop the screen out like so. And that allows the screen to come out, and then it allows me to be able to pull the screen out, pull the battery back up, and then boom, we're off and we're going. Obviously, it works perfectly when it's all built together, and it basically just does everything you need it to do that. And that is basically the power connection system that allows us to put the V-mount batteries to the back of this and just hot swap them off. And this is all made out of metal. This is like solid chunk of whatever, aluminium or whatever it is. It's really, really well made. So that is like the three-step process of getting the battery system to the R5c. The R5c. Okay, so the next thing that I needed to do was I needed to protect this damn little micro HDMI port. And then obviously, because I was putting power to the R5, I also had to protect the USB-C port from being yanked about as well. So that brought me to this guy, which is another sort of universal cable clamp system, which basically these little nuts just tighten these two cheeses up, these two blocks up against the camera. So effectively that just sits across the back of the camera there like that. Cables go in and then you just tighten it up and it tightens them into place, and then they can't be pulled out, yanked out, pulled left and right, that kind of thing. They don't move anywhere, and they're effectively just dead safe. So they don't actually shift, and they're just locked in place. So that's sort of like the camera cable system protection, and then I bought this little thing, which is a spring-loaded. It's like a little arm, and that just fits onto the side of the cage. So it just fits on the side of the cage like so, and that then just allows me to basically tidy the cables up. So the cables can feed in through that, and it just snaps into place, and it makes them feed into a certain angle, and it means that I've not got cables, like a bunch of cables hanging out this side of the camera effectively. And then the last bit of actual cage gear was this, and this is a micro USB to micro HDMI to full size HDMI SmallRig adapter, and that just fits on the side of the camera handle like so, and that means that the HDMI cable from the screen can come straight into there, and then it just feeds through the cable through the cage, and then an extension feeds it straight into the camera and goes through the cable management system. And that is essentially all the things that I use in order to be able to cage this guy out. Obviously there are other things, like we use in things like this Tilter mini matte box, which allows us to use both circular and plate filters, and we're using various different types of cable, mostly from Condor Blue, and these are HDMI or USB-C cables, because they're specifically set up for charging, and they're specifically set up so that we can power the whole system. And yeah, that is basically a quick look at how we cage out our R5c. What I'll do is I'll leave some links in the description, below the like button in the description, of all the things that I bought in order to be able to cage this out. And as I get more stuff for it, because there's other things like a side handle and that kind of stuff, I'll stick a link into the things I'm going to get as well, so that you can see roughly what I know, roughly what I'm going to actually get to cage this out. And then if you want to pick and choose from that, you can, because that'll allow you to sort of cage it out in a way that doesn't make it overbearing, but you still get everything that you need from this whole cage system. But yeah, so I hope you did find this useful. I hope you did find the look at this cage really useful. And if you are thinking of caging your camera out, do be aware it does get heavy, but it is an immensely useful thing to be able to do. So with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!